Owning a home was supposed to be a dream come true, a place where I could build a future without worrying about landlords or unfair rules. But what I didn't realize was that moving into an HOA-controlled neighborhood meant trading one problem for another. At first, I didn't think much of it. The HOA seemed like a minor inconvenience, just a group of neighbors ensuring that the community stayed clean and organized. But I would soon learn that under the leadership of Karen, the HOA president, it was less about maintaining the neighborhood and more about abusing power. The trouble started when I received a violation notice in the mail. It was a standard HOA letter, cold and impersonal, stating that my garage was non-compliant with community standards. Confused, I read further, expecting some specific issue to be outlined. Instead, the letter was vague, simply saying that my garage did not align with the aesthetics of the neighborhood and that I had 30 days to bring it into compliance or face fines. I stepped outside and looked at my garage, feeling utterly perplexed. It was a standard, well-maintained structure, identical to several others in the neighborhood. There were no damages, no peeling paint, no structural issues. If anything, it was in better shape than some of my neighbors' garages, which had visible rust or chipped wood. Something about this felt off. I decided to call the HOA office and ask for clarification. Big mistake. The moment I mentioned my name, I was transferred directly to Karen. Her tone was immediately condescending. "Yes, we received complaints about your garage," she said, as if I were already guilty. "It doesn't meet community guidelines." "What guidelines?" I asked, trying to keep my patience. "My garage is in perfect shape. It looks like everyone else's." Karen sighed dramatically. "Sir, we have strict aesthetic policies in this neighborhood. Your garage does not complement the overall design." I frowned. "Can you tell me exactly what's wrong with it?" Karen hesitated. "Well, it's out of alignment with the architectural flow of the community." That was when I knew this was personal. She had nothing real to back up her claims. I decided not to argue over the phone. Instead, I requested an official written explanation of the violation and a copy of the HOA rules regarding garages. Karen agreed but sounded annoyed, as if she hadn't expected me to push back. A few days later, I received another notice, this time with a fine of $250. The violation? Still non-compliance, with no clear explanation. Along with it was a list of HOA regulations. But there was no rule about garage aesthetics, no mention of structural changes, nothing that applied to my situation. Now I was angry. This wasn't just about my garage. This was about control. I started asking around the neighborhood, trying to see if anyone else had experienced something similar. That's when I discovered a disturbing pattern. Other homeowners had garages identical to mine. None of them had received a violation. But then, I spoke to an elderly couple, the Hendersons, who had lived in the neighborhood for over a decade. They revealed that Karen had pulled the same stunt on them years ago, forcing them to make unnecessary modifications to their front porch just because she didn't like the look of it. They had caved in and paid thousands to avoid the HOA's wrath. That's when it hit me. Karen was selectively enforcing rules to get what she wanted. I did more digging and found out that Karen had recently proposed a new HOA project to expand the neighborhood's shared amenities. Part of the plan? Reclaiming underutilized structures for community purposes. She wanted my garage gone to make space for her new pet project. The situation quickly escalated. Within 2 weeks, I had received 3 more violation notices and additional fines, totaling over $1,000. Then came the most shocking letter of all, a formal warning stating that if the violations were not addressed, the HOA would be filing a lien against my property to seize the garage. Karen wasn't just harassing me anymore. She was trying to take my property. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just an HOA dispute. This was war. I wasn't going to let Karen strong-arm me like she had done to others. If she wanted a fight, she was going to get one. It was time to lawyer up. I wasn't about to let Karen steal my garage under the guise of bogus violations. If she thought she could bully me into submission like she had done to others, She was dead wrong. The moment I received that lien warning, I knew I had to escalate things. It was time to fight back, legally. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. When I explained the situation, he was immediately suspicious. They can't just seize your property based on vague violations, he told me. They need clear, documented proof that you've broken specific rules. If they can't produce that, they're in deep legal trouble. That was exactly what I needed to hear. My lawyer advised me to gather all my evidence, all HOA notices and fines I had received, photos of my garage showing it was in perfect condition, the HOA's own regulations, which had no rule about garage aesthetics, statements from neighbors proving that my garage was identical to others that had never been cited, records of Karen's past harassment, including the Hendersons' experience. With everything compiled, I officially challenged the violations. I sent a letter demanding that Karen provide explicit proof of what was supposedly wrong with my garage. I also requested a formal hearing with the HOA board. Karen's response? She ignored my request and instead doubled down. I received another violation notice, this time claiming that my garage was an unauthorized modification that wasn't approved by the HOA. That was complete nonsense. The garage had been built before I even moved in, and I had documentation proving it had been approved years ago. Karen was making up rules as she went along. Then, things took a turn for the insane. A neighbor caught Karen and another HOA member taking photos of my garage in the middle of the night. When I checked my security camera footage, sure enough, there they were, sneaking around like criminals. Karen was desperate. She knew I was fighting back, and instead of backing down, she was trying to fabricate even more evidence against me. That was the last straw. My lawyer filed a formal cease and desist letter against the HOA, demanding they stop their harassment and retract the false violations. He also warned them that any further attempts to seize my garage would result in a lawsuit. Karen, still thinking she was invincible, ignored it. Instead, she sent one final notice stating that the HOA was moving forward with legal proceedings to enforce the lien and take control of my garage. That was exactly what I wanted. Karen had just walked herself into a massive legal trap. She had no idea that she had zero legal standing. And now, she was about to find that out in court. The battle wasn't over yet, but one thing was clear. Karen had made the biggest mistake of her HOA career. The moment Karen and the HOA officially moved forward with legal action to seize my garage, my lawyer and I were more than ready. Karen thought she could bully me into submission, but what she didn't realize was that she had zero legal standing, and she was about to be exposed in court. The court hearing date was set, and I made sure that everyone in the neighborhood knew exactly what was happening. Word spread fast. Homeowners who had suffered under Karen's rule for years started coming forward, sharing their own stories of bogus violations, unfair fines, and selective enforcement. By the time the hearing arrived, I had a full stack of evidence and multiple neighbors willing to testify against the HOA's corruption. The courtroom showdown. The day of the hearing, I walked into court calm and confident. Karen, on the other hand, looked nervous but still smug, as if she truly believed she could talk her way out of this. She had the HOA's attorney with her, but the moment my lawyer began laying out our case, the cracks started to show. First, we tore apart the HOA's claims. The HOA had no clear documentation, proving my garage was in violation of any rule. They ignored my request for a formal hearing, which was a direct violation of HOA procedures. They lied about my garage being an unauthorized modification when it had been approved years before I even moved in. Other homes in the community had identical garages, yet they were never cited or fined. Then, we presented security footage of Karen and an HOA member snooping around my garage at night. The judge was not impressed. But the real nail in the coffin was when my lawyer exposed Karen's secret agenda. We showed emails and meeting minutes where Karen had pushed for a community development project requiring underutilized spaces to be reclaimed. A budget proposal where she had included my garage's space in a plan for expanded HOA facilities. Testimonies from other homeowners who had been targeted with similar fraudulent violations. At this point, Karen was visibly panicking. She tried to interrupt multiple times, claiming that she was simply enforcing community standards, but the judge wasn't having it. Finally, after reviewing all the evidence, the judge gave his ruling. Karen and the HOA lose big time. The judge ruled in my favor on every single count. All violation notices and fines were declared invalid. The attempted lien on my property was ruled illegal. The HOA was ordered to cover all of my legal fees and refund every fine I had already paid. Karen was found guilty of abuse of power and selective enforcement. And the best part? The judge imposed financial penalties on the HOA, forcing them to pay thousands in damages, not just to me, but to several homeowners who had also been unfairly fined under Karen's rule. Karen looked devastated. She had spent months trying to get rid of my garage, only to end up humiliated in front of the entire community. The fallout. Karen gets what she deserves. After the ruling, things unraveled fast for Karen. The HOA board turned against her. Members who had supported her before suddenly distanced themselves, afraid of getting caught in the scandal. Homeowners started a petition to have her removed as HOA president, and it got overwhelming support. She was officially forced to resign. Multiple homeowners sued her personally for harassment and damages. And, as a final twist of irony, Karen was hit with HOA fines herself for misuse of HOA funds and unauthorized actions as president. Within 3 months, she sold her house and moved out, completely disgraced. Victory. My garage stays right where it is. With Karen gone, the entire neighborhood changed. The HOA restructured, bringing in fair leadership that actually followed the rules. All bogus violations were dropped, and homeowners who had been unfairly fined were reimbursed. Karen's ridiculous community project was scrapped. And most importantly, my garage stayed exactly where it was. Karen had tried to strong-arm me out of my own property, but in the end, she had only destroyed herself. The HOA learned a harsh lesson that day. They messed with the wrong homeowner.